Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the Harrogate series. Harrogate is a large borough, one of the 11 districts of North Yorkshire. It's got 139 civil parishes. Which one are we in this episode? Welcome back to Harrogate again, people. Now, the weather has been really weird today. 1 minute it's decided to be rainy, like it is right now. The next minute it's brilliant sunshine. And just my luck, it's decided to rain as I'm making my way up this footpath, which thankfully is not muddy, but it leads to somewhere that's very historic, and it's the first time we'll have seen something of this kind on the channel. We're heading for an ancient henge. Not seen any of them before anywhere, and you'll find it in the parish of Marton le Moor. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like, and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Marton le Moor, Marsh Farm on the Moor. Here's a nice one for you folks. Welcome to Marton le Moor, a pretty little village just off the A1 between Boroughbridge and Ripon. The parish also includes the ancient hamlet of Cana. With a population in the region of 200 people, evidence suggests that Marton le Moor has been settled for millennia, going back to prehistoric times. Flint flakes and Roman coins have been discovered in and around the local fields before now. For centuries thereafter, the village became a farming area, and as the number of residents increased, so too did the facilities, with a post office, a school, a chapel and a church all springing up. Although these have all now disappeared, the village continues to thrive, and its peacefulness and beauty still make it an attractive place in which to live. There are annual events here such as carol singing, bulb planting and the tallest sunflower competition, as well as regular get-togethers focused around the meeting room, a converted blacksmith shop. Marton le Moor has remained relatively small throughout its existence, but in its time it's managed to forge links with the likes of Fountains Abbey, the Dukes of Devonshire and the Compton family of Newby Hall. Anyone who drives through this one does so mainly to reach the A1. Not many stop, but I did. Let's go exploring. We start with the hamlet of Cana, north of Marton le Moor. Here, off a public footpath, you're looking at Cana Barn, one of the great henges aligned from the Devil's Arrows in Boroughbridge to a complex at Thornborough. It was a huge Neolithic temple, and the remains consist of a circular enclosure 174 metres in diameter. There's also a ditch and an outer bank, with opposing entrances positioned roughly north and south. Cana Henge is barely visible on the ground, but overhead images show the site and its crop marks a lot better. This amble was worth it though, even if it was just for this view. Yes, I gotta be honest, I probably overbilled that a little bit in the intro, didn't I? But never mind. It's a henge anyway, and now the channel has officially seen the site of one, if not one itself. It's not exactly Stonehenge, is it? We will get to that though eventually when we hit that part of Wiltshire, I promise you. Right, okay, so now we're gonna head down into Marton le Moor village itself and see what that's like. I understand, having never been there before, this is quite a pretty little place. Let's go and see. We start our main walk on Cana Lane, which runs north to the site of the Barnhenge before deviating towards Dishforth Road. It's mostly residential along here, and there are some lovely stone cottages, some quaint little terraces, and a few former farmhouses. There's also a former Wesleyan chapel. This was built in 1899 and still has many of its original features, such as Gothic doors and windows, beams, wooden floors, and panelling. Converted into a 3-bedroom dwelling in 1985, Wesley House, as it's known today, is used as a holiday cottage and was thoroughly modernised in 2014. The old chapel is just one of Marton le Moor's former amenities that's fallen by the wayside. The old post office just up the street is another, which is now a house as well. Mind you, Marton still has a post box, sited dead opposite the old posting house and right next to the old phone box, which has become a book exchange. This communal area has a parish notice board as well, so that was my cue to get the cards out. Mark off Marton le Moor, everybody. TVI was here. Cana Lane then comes to an end and does so at a triangular shaped green. Onto Whitegate Lane next then, as we start to head west. A large wall runs to the right-hand side of the road here. On it is a wooden plaque stating something was planted to commemorate VE Day in 1945. It's not clear what was planted, it doesn't say, but I would imagine it's this tree. I couldn't see any other option really. Whatever the case, the road starts to bend now, and speaking of trees, they become more of a feature on the next corner. A clump of them surround the manor house, which dates back to at least 1820, but historic England reckon it's more likely mid to late 18th century. Regardless, the magnificent property is Grade 2 listed. Okay, so far so good. We have now sort of veered to the right a little bit and we're heading for Chapel Lane. We'll take a left turn onto that and we're heading for something called Devonshire Green. Now, of course, being from living in Rotherham, Devonshire Green to me means something else. It means a place in Sheffield, but here in Marton le Moor it means the actual green itself, the sort of main green space that the village has. We'll check that out. I've already had a look at it because I did the drive-in earlier and managed to get a glance at it. It looks quite nice, so we'll see exactly what it's like when we get there. There's also a church or a chapel down here as well. And we can use a little cut through to make a nice little loop that will bring us back onto this road further up, make a nice little circular walk. It's been very good so far. I'm quite enjoying this place, and it is as pretty as I thought it was going to be. Aside from the manor house, there are 5 other listed buildings in Marton le Moor. The others are mainly farmhouses, but that figure does include the former church too. Before we get to that, let's check out Tithe Way. Now, this is a modern cul-de-sac and not really in keeping with the rest of the village, but it was notable for this bus stop. Marton le Moor is served by the number 83, which connects York to Ripon. The shelter has been decorated by the locals too. An about turn sees us walk onto the gorgeous Devonshire Green, the largest and best kept communal space in the village. The Green is so named thanks to this area's historic connections with the Dukes of Devonshire, something we'll be covering more as we head deeper into the North Yorkshire countryside. Itself, Marton le Moor has historically been more associated with the nearby Newby Hall estate. Now we come to the former church of St Mary, which was built in 1830. This is now no longer in regular use for worship, having been declared redundant in 2004. Despite that, the small churchyard remains open and part of it has been turned into a community garden to benefit all sectors of the community. After that, the road starts to run away into the countryside, and the only other landmark of note up here is this well-equipped playground. This is where my route went a little awry. The street I was wanting to use, Chapel Close, is actually a dead end and you can't get through onto Whitegate Lane. This meant I had to walk back the way I'd already come. On this final stretch is a former blacksmiths shop, which has been turned into a meeting room. The idea for it was put forward by a man named Alan Smith in 1990, and now the once derelict building is a thriving communal venue. Okay, we are back to Cana Lane, which means we have completed the circle of Marton le Moor. Not the way I intended, but we did it anyway. So yeah, that's it. Lovely little place this, isn't it? Fantastic. But we've come to expect this from this part of North Yorkshire now, haven't we? Every time we come to a place that's near Harrogate or near Ripon or near Knaresborough, we just expect this gorgeousness, and we get it every time, every single time. Let's see if the next place is just as good. That's going to do us for Marton le Moor, everybody. What a great little village. Time seems to have stood still here for the past 100 or so years, but that's not a bad thing. It's refreshing to see a place like Marton le Moor casually minding its own business amidst an ever-changing, busy world. See you next week for more. Thanks for watching this video, folks. Don't forget to like this episode if you haven't already. It really makes a difference with YouTube. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us a share too if you've got friends who'd like it. You can find all the links to my social media accounts below, as well as my Buy Me a Coffee page where you can donate to the channel. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode, have a look at some more videos in this series. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.